Going Zero by Anthony McCarten is the perfect summer slump breaker. And sure, it's easy to dismiss this as an airport thriller, but there is something to be said for a book that you just consume over a few short days. I devoured this thing. It is short chapters, just the right amount of characters to bounce around to, and a simple premise that ups the ante as it goes along. And I know the Booker long list has just been released. Lots of fantastic reads, and I know I'm going to get to a lot of them eventually, but if you need a break from important navel-gazing literature, I suggest this fast-paced summer read is just right for you. Setup? Simple. You've got tech bro billionaire Cy Baxter, who's teamed up with the CIA to deliver a massive, next-level, bleeding-edge national surveillance system called Fusion. It's going to revolutionize the way criminals are identified and caught. And if they can prove this technology out, it means a 10-year, $100 billion contract with the government. And so, in order to beta test this, they invite 10 civilians. All these civilians have to do is evade capture for 30 days. If they can do that, they'll pocket a sweet $3 million. Among the 10 is a Boston librarian with the name of Caitlin Day. She's just a regular old civilian, should be an easy catch, but somehow she manages to stay a step ahead. Now remember, I really did enjoy this book, and I love the constant drip of excitement throughout. But if I had a quibble, it is how basic the 10 civilians that were selected for this are at evading capture and surveillance. I mean, I am sure the guns and ammo crowd reading Soldier of Fortune are losing their mind because the book doesn't follow some pretty basic edicts that they've set out in place. I'm sure they have this massive, well-planned, off-the-grid strategy that they can't wait to implement as soon as the woke mafia implements mandatory gender reassignment surgery, or the Jews fire up their space laser, or whatever sort of nefarious villainy the left has in store for them. As for myself, I'd probably just head on down to Chinatown, pretty confident that the facial recognition software still can't tell Asians apart. I would just work as a dishwasher in some hole-in-the-wall restaurant that always has a 6-year-old doing homework at one of the tables, and all the food looks really shiny underneath their laminated menus. I mean, some of the folks vying for the $3 million are just bad at this. I mean, there's the guy who walls himself up in his own home a la Cask of Amontillado, or the other guy who thinks he can maintain a low profile even if he brings his pouty, absolutely extra girlfriend along. Rookie moves. I was hoping for some clever or elaborate disappearing acts, some next level dark Reddit stuff, living off the grid completely, hiding out in subway tunnels, disappearing into a tent city, elaborate disguises, wearing leg braces that change the way I walk, the whole deal. Of course, there's a lot of hand-waving when it comes to the tracking technology that's involved here, but that's just being nitpicky. No one enters the Fast and the Furious movie without parking the rules of physics at the door. I'm sure the franchise has got a restraining order against Neil deGrasse Tyson's, whose head would explode with all the repressed well-actuallys within the first 10 minutes of the movie. Besides, it turns out even with the best of disguises, our old habits and past lives can eventually catch up with us. About 15 years ago, Wired offered its readers a $5,000 bounty if they could capture writer Evan Ratcliffe, who decided he was going to try and disappear for a month and write about his experience. I'll have a link to the entire story in the description down below. It was a completely crowdsourced investigation, just regular folk that were hot on his heels almost right from the start. And despite a difficult signal-to-noise ratio, they proved remarkably adept at tracking his movements across the country, but Evan managed to stay ahead of the hunt. But it turns out a month is a lot longer than you imagine, and old habits and small mistakes tend to add up over time. There's this other article on disappearing, or at least finding the disappeared. I've got to say, my Google history is going to look awfully suspicious if I suddenly am a victim of a kidnapping or something like that. But in this case, they're talking about finding those missing people, reasoning that those people are on the run tend to keep in contact with one or two people from their past lives, and they will always monitor the hunt. So in this case, the investigator created an invite-only tip site, sent the link out to friends and family, made sure it was completely invisible to Google. And sure enough, eventually they noticed a massive spike in traffic in South America, where they did eventually find the missing person. But in Going Zero, it is some multi-billion-dollar technology that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And of course, true to form behind that technology is a billionaire 12-year-old tryhard who throws little hissy fits and stomps his feet when faced with anything other than mewling, obedient sycophants. I long for the days of billionaire evil geniuses that are giving Lex Luthor, not Yosemite Sam. Cy Baxter. Billionaire wonderkin, certainly, but also a neurodivergent man-child who espouses lofty goals that crumble at the first sign of adversity. And of course, there are no shortage of real-world billionaire dicks to draw inspiration from, but frankly, I am getting tired of seeing them the more often I am in books. I'm thinking most recently of multi-billionaire Robert Lemoyne in Eleanor Catton's Birnam Wood, easily the least interesting character in an otherwise fantastic book. But these are minor quibbles. The book doesn't quit and the action keeps on coming. And it turns out author Anthony McCarten has got some serious writerly chops. He may not be well recognized on the bookish internet, but here's a man who has 4 Academy Award nominations to his name, 2 for adapted screenplay. He's most well known for writing big budget biopics a la The Darkest Hour, Theory of Everything, Bohemian Rhapsody, and The Two Popes. I haven't seen any of these movies, but I hear they're generally well liked. And no spoilers, I didn't love the third act turn, and the ending, while a classic play, was a tad unsatisfying. Again, still, love the book, tore through it. You should check it out, especially in a slump or you need some serious summer reads. Still, who doesn't love a badass librarian that celebrates the day-to-day connections they're making in the real world every day? Kick-ass read and the perfect summer beach read for you. Anyway, I'm on to Rebecca. The first chapter is an absolute banger. And this thing is going to prove, I think, to be an absolutely fantastic read. I can't wait to finish it. But I have to say, for this classic, I've never met another book that is so cursed with some awful covers. I thought my cover was bad. It is nothing compared to some atrocious ones that I've seen out there on the internet so far. Anyway, it is a crime to an otherwise fantastic story. Anyway, another fantastic summer read so far, even though it's giving a lot of gothic vibes. Tell me what it is that you're reading that is the perfect summer read. I'd love to know in the comments down below. But otherwise, I hope you have a great week of reading, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.